Okay, we've got the game set up. We're starting with the spring turn of 1778 in the scenario the French are in. So we begin with drawing 3 cards for the British, 3 cards for the Americans. Now, of course, because of the video, when we're playing solitaire, we will have to reveal them. So these are the American draws. They have 2 good cards they can use, plus they have a British event, which they'll have to give away or offer it. The British are okay, so they have to offer the British this card, and the British will take it, and in taking it they have to discard 1. And the Americans get to draw another card, so you have to have 3 cards, and they get Light Horse Harry Lee, so not a bad hand. So I'm going to try to play this game as honestly as I can. Of course, we have foreknowledge of all these things, but we'll see who goes first and make decisions from there. Okay, we're rolling to see who goes first. Red die will be British, blue is colonial. And we've got a red 6, blue 4. The British will be taking the first action pulse. Well, the British are not in a very enviable situation, that's for sure. Clinton is at Philadelphia. Now, historically, they evacuated the place, and I think that's a good move. Now, I don't want to lose this little wee garrison at Wilmington, so I'm going to roll for Clinton to pick up that garrison and march to New York. So Clinton is going to roll anything but a 6, and he should be able to do the move. He rolls a 2, so he's okay. So he can go 1, pick this guy up, 2, 3, 4. And the main Royal Army will be at Sandy Hook. This will be absorbed into the Royal Army. Now, the only way we could simulate the Battle of Monmouth, which occurred here, would be if the Americans moved next and they attack Clinton there. But we still have naval moves to do for the British. And we've got Byron's fleet way off there in Europe, and we have Hood's fleet at anchor at New York. And they have to watch out for D'Estaing's fleet over there in the West Indies. So I think the best bet to do would be to concentrate those fleets. Let's see what those rolls are. Now, apologies for showing the map the way it is. Just as this board is so big, it's very hard to show you close-ups, but I'll try that later on in the game. Anyway, Byron rolled a 6, so he's going to move like so. 1, 2, he'll enter the Caribbean down there. 2, maybe go 3, 4, 5, and 6. So at least now Byron is threatening D'Estaing's fleet. Which reminds me, should I put the, yeah, I've got a good D'Estaing marker there. And he's carrying the 6 seasonal French. Now Howe rolled a 3, so he's going to move, put to sea also. And he'll go 1, 2, 3. Now my purpose there is to try to box D'Estaing in and force him into battle. So that's the British move. Let's see who moves next. Okay, this time the Colonials roll a 4, the British a 2. So the Colonials move next. Now Washington has got a major decision. Does he move the Continental Army to engage Clinton, as he did in the real historical Battle of Monmouth? Well, yeah, I think I'd like to try it. I know it's turn 1, it's early in the war. Washington does not have to risk his army, but his army is pretty good after the training at Valley Forge all winter. He's got a lot of good units. So I think we're going to have a big battle perhaps at Sandy Hook. Let's see if Washington moves. Very good chance he will. He'd pretty well have to roll 2 6s to fail. And Washington moves. So Washington will go 1, 2, and we have a big battle perhaps at Sandy Hook. Now I'm looking at the battle odds here. If Washington attacks, or if Clinton accepts battle rather, the Colonials, Americans, will be on the 8-14 table and adding 5 to the dice. It's a pretty good chance they'd inflict 2 casualties on Clinton. Clinton, however, is on 1 table better, slightly larger, and he's adding 7 to the dice. So he could inflict 3 on Washington. So it's a risky battle. And I'm not sure if Washington should risk it. But you know, for the video, I think I'm going to try it. Because British losses are very critical in this game. Very critical. The British just can't afford to lose. So we're going to fight this battle. Now that brings me to the use of cards. I forgot I had Light Horse Harry Lee here, which Washington will play, and he'll add these dragoon counters to his army, which will add 1 to the dice, so that's going to even things up. Plus he could play a battle card, which will add another 2. So that's going to make it pretty even for both sides. Let's calculate the odds again, and we'll roll the fight. You know, it's going to be a good battle, all right. And Clinton really shouldn't fight it, because Washington will be adding 9 to the dice, and Clinton will be adding 7. But, you know, hey, this is a game. Let's try it. Let's see what the battle is. So it's who can outroll the other. Here we go. +9 for the Americans, +7 for Clinton. Okay. So, Americans roll, what, is 16? And, oh my God, Clinton rolls a 9. So that's clearly an American victory. Let's look at the casualties. Well, the Colonials clearly win that battle. Clinton loses 3 strength points. Washington loses 1. I'll take those off their army right now. All right, so that's a very bad result for Clinton. Clinton is defeated. He retreats from Sandy Hook. Luckily for him, he can go to New York and gets to have a wonderful D marker on him. So a clear victory for Washington, driving the British into New York. Okay, we're rolling for initiative again. See who gets the next one. It's a tie. Now when a tie is rolled, you each draw 1 more action card. The British will draw 1. Now they already have 3, so they draw a new one. They have to discard 1. Well, we'll discard this extended march and keep those 2. And the Americans draw a card, and they get the Six Nations event. And you go to the next action pulse, and the player who moved first last burns the next action pulse. So that means the Colonials will be moving. Okay, well, the Americans have the Six Nations card, and I think they're feeling pretty good, so they're going to use it. American player activates 1 tribe of his choice, then both players roll to activate all the other tribes. Now, the funny thing is the British had a similar card. They didn't play it. They're kind of playing conservative. Now that might come to bite them. Anyway, the Americans choose to activate the Onondagas on their side. Yeah, Onondagas. So now we have to roll for all of the other Six Nations to see who they join. High man gets them. Okay, so we're rolling for the Mohawks. Oh, no, wait, I blew that. You don't roll for the Mohawks. The Mohawks always go with the British. All right, so we're rolling for the Cayugas here. And it's tied. So they actually stay neutral. That means the Cayugas join neither side. All right, so we're rolling for the Oneidas. Ties, wow. This is kind of cool. I haven't seen this before. So many of the Six Nations staying neutral. And the last tribe is the Seneca. And the Americans get the Senecas. So this is unusual. The Six Nations, 2 have joined the Americans, and only 1 have joined the British. Interesting little scenario here. So that's what it looks like now. Mohawks, British. Onondagas and Seneca, American. Now the Americans have played their card, but that does not burn up their action. So they still have an action to do. Now I could have Washington assault New York City, but that's Clinton's army plus all those dudes there, so I don't think that's a good idea. Although when the enemy is D'd, that's the time to hit him, because if you D him again, he loses another one. Let me do the math and see if it's viable. Well, if Washington did attack there, it could get pretty ugly. Yes, the British are D, but they'd be rolling on the highest table and adding 5 to the dice. Now, Washington would be on one table lower, and he would be adding 7 to the dice. So, you know, he could win this, almost deciding the war in the North in one fall swoop. And Washington was a bit of a gambler, and I think he'd do it. So we're going to see if Washington does do the move. Rolls the die. He rolled a 6. Aha. So Washington will only not do the move if he rolls another 6. Rolling again. Rolls a 5. So he does. So now we have a gigantic battle at New York, which could decide the entire war in the North. Let's roll that battle and see what happens. Now the British are entrenched there, so Washington is actually rolling 6 to the dice. Here we go. The second big battle at New York. Uh-oh. Well, Washington rolls an 11, and adding 6, he gets the top result, which is 2 stars. Clinton rolling a 9, but he's adding 7 also, so he gets the top result, which is 3. So Clinton holds him off with horrendous casualties. Washington loses 2, Clinton loses 3. Okay, well, Washington had to try that, but he got his nose bloodied because he didn't win the battle. He retreats in turn from New York. He'll go back to Trenton, and he gets the demarker. The demarker comes off. So, very bloody battle there at New York and at Sandy Hook. But Americans can make up their losses easier than the British. Now, we still have the French naval move to do. Okay, D'Estaing is getting caught between a rock and a hard place in one sense. First of all, he's carrying troops, but he's got Hood cutting him off here from the deep south, and he's got Byron bearing down. So he's got to watch himself. I mean, to lose a fleet and these troops now would be disastrous. So he's got to avoid these. So he could risk running down into the blockade zone and going up the American coast, but he could be intercepted by Hood. But I think he's going to take the safe way and just try to get away from those fleets. So D'Estaing is going to roll 1 die, and that's going to be his movement factor. Unfortunately for him, he only gets a 3. That's not too good. That'll only put him there, which will put him closer to Byron. Or he could go there and run risking a battle with Hood. So he's got a rough decision. Let me look at the tables. Boy, D'Estaing's got a decision. If he moves to the Deep South blockade, there's a 50-50 chance he'll end up engaging with Hood. And he doesn't want to do that. Now, of course, he could engage with Hood and even win the battle. That's getting pretty dicey. I think he's going to just go 1 space and try to avoid the British. Maybe the British will get bad die rolls. So that's the French move. And we've got lots happening in the early month, spring of 1778. Let's roll to see who goes next. It's a tie. Holy cow. Okay, well, that means each person gets a card. Okay, when you have a tie, each person will draw a card. So we'll draw a new one for the Colonials. They get extended march. The British do get to draw one, but then they'll have to discard one because you can't have more than 3. Well, the Six Nations has already been decided, so that's the one they should discard. So they've now just drawn a card. Now, when you have a tie, you each take one more initiative, and then the turn is over. So the Americans will move first, then the British, then the turn is over. So that will end the spring turn of 1778. The Americans will move first. Well, first of all, they can remove the D marker. That's gone. Now we'll see what the Americans can do, because they certainly have the initiative now. Okay, Washington's army over here has so many leaders in it. I think he can splinter off a couple of units, start heading to the south, because I think they know that the British, the only thing they can do is in the south. There's very few American units there. So I think they'll start anticipating the British move. Okay, the Americans are going to splinter off a force under Greene, carrying with him 2 good tactical leaders, Morgan and Lee's Dragoons, with a strength of 3. So that'll be a small but very formidable force. Let's see if Greene moves. He rolls a 6, so he does not. He actually gets half his movement, which is only 2. So he starts heading south from Philadelphia. So he makes it to Wilmington with a small but very lethal force. That will leave D'Estaing to do his move. Okay, depending on what D'Estaing rolls, we'll see if he can escape from these 2 fleets that are trying to close in on him. He gets 3. Well, let's take a look. Yeah, I think the best thing for him to do would be to beat up wind. So he pays 1 because he's going with an arrow, and 2 against. So he's beating up wind. So it'd be a lot harder for Hood and Byron to catch him. So that's the colonial move. Now the British move, what can they do? Now the British transport capacity for 1778 is 8 factors. That means for the entire year, they can only move 8 by sea. And with D'Estaing sort of boxed in here with the 2 fleets, it might be a good time to start a southern campaign. So the British are going to splinter off a force from New York and head it to the south by sea. Let's get that composition together and see how far they go. Okay, we got some new rules here. A naval move. The British are going to burn up their entire naval capacity for the year to get these guys south. So 8 strength points. So we put the British transport capacity to 0. And you don't have counters for transports in this game. You're just going to roll, and let's see how far they get. So the British want to roll as high as they can. Roll a die. They get 3 moon points. They use 1 to embark, 2 to go to the Middle States blockade, and 3, they're at the Tidewater blockade. So we have a large British force at sea, and pretty safe from D'Estaing. D'Estaing would have to go through Hood to get at that force, but it's a bold, risky move. Whether it pays off, that's something else again. Now, of course, the British get to move their fleets. Now the question is, do they intercept D'Estaing? Well, they're going to try. Let's try Hood. Hood will roll. And he gets 1 movement point, which only just makes him sail into the Caribbean. Still, it's a nice block on D'Estaing. Now, Byron would need a 1, 2, 3. He'd need a 5 at least to intercept D'Estaing. Roll, what does he get? he gets 3. So he's short. 1, 2, 3. But you see, D'Estaing is not going anywhere quick. So the British fleets are doing their job, but they have not been able to bring D'Estaing to battle. Now with that move, the phase ends, and we advance the turn record to late spring. That might be a good place to end the video. Just doing some experimenting to see how viable the French are in scenario is, and I think it is a viable scenario. The British are hard pressed, but you've still got a game. I'll have to look at the victory conditions again to see how the British can win after the French are in. Okay, looking at the victory conditions after French entry, it is not easy. One is reduce the American political will to 0. Well, that's going to be almost impossible. The other one is capture all French ports in the Caribbean while not losing any of their own at the end of the game. That's going to be tough too. Third one is control 4 colonies at the end of the game. That's going to be tough. Although Rhode Island gives you 1, that would mean 3 more, which virtually means kind of Georgia, North Carolina, and South Carolina. I think that's the only way they can possibly win now. The other way is to control all the following port spaces in the 10 colonies in the chart below. And I think that's going to be almost impossible, because that's Boston, Newport, Rhode Island, New London, Connecticut, New Haven, Connecticut, Wilmington, Delaware, Baltimore, Alexandria, Wilmington, Charleston, Savannah. That's going to be almost impossible. So I think the only way the British could win the game now is to control 4 colonies. And that's the avenue I'll pursue. So that's the end of the video, and thank you for watching.